Imagine a land, vast, untouched, alive. Mountains that touch the clouds, rivers that run cold and clear, plains that stretch further than the eye can see. This land had a heartbeat, and that heartbeat had a name. Actually, it had hundreds of names, because long before anyone called this place America, long before there was a flag, a president, or a constitution, there were people here, millions of them. This is their story. Before 1492, before Europe ever looked west across the ocean, North America was home to somewhere between 50 and 100 million people. 500 distinct nations, 300 different languages, thousands of years of civilization. These were not primitive people living in chaos. These were sophisticated, complex societies, each with their own government, their own laws, their own philosophy, their own art. The Haudenosaunee people, known today as the Iroquois, had a democratic constitution called the Great Law of Peace. Some historians believe the Founding Fathers studied it when writing the United States Constitution. The Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan, built on an island in the middle of a lake, was home to over 200,000 people. At the time, it was larger than London, larger than Paris, one of the greatest cities on Earth. In the Mississippi Valley, cities rose and traded across networks that stretched thousands of miles, from the Gulf of Mexico to the Great Lakes. These people were farmers and hunters, astronomers and healers, poets and warriors, builders and storytellers. They knew the stars by name. They knew which plants could cure fever. They knew how to live with the land, not against it. This was not an empty land waiting to be discovered. This was home. On October 12th, 1492, a man named Christopher Columbus stepped off a ship onto a small island in the Caribbean. He had been searching for a trade route to Asia. He had found something else entirely. He looked at the people who came to greet him, curious, open, unarmed, and he wrote in his journal that night, "They do not carry weapons and do not know them. They would make fine servants." That single sentence, written on the first day of contact, tells you everything about what was to come. The Spanish arrived first, then the French, then the British. Each came with different flags and different languages, but the same hunger for land, for gold, for power. They brought soldiers and missionaries. They brought guns and crosses. And they brought something far more deadly than either: disease. Smallpox, measles, typhus, cholera. Diseases the native people had never encountered before. Diseases their bodies had no defense against. Entire villages were wiped out in weeks. Communities that had existed for thousands of years, gone. Not from battle, not from conquest, simply from contact. Historians estimate that within 100 years of European arrival, as much as 90% of the Native American population was dead. 90%. To put that in perspective, if 90% of the world's population died today, that would be over 7 billion people. And that was only the beginning. As the years passed and the United States grew, stretching further and further west, the native nations stood in the way of expansion, and the government made a decision. In 1830, President Andrew Jackson, the man whose face appears on the American $20 bill, signed the Indian Removal Act. With a single piece of paper, the United States government declared that native people had no legal right to their own land. Entire nations, the Cherokee, the Creek, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Seminole, were ordered to leave the homes their ancestors had built over thousands of years. They were told to walk. The Cherokee called what happened next Nuna Dal Tsuni. In English, the trail where they cried. In the winter of 1838, over 15,000 Cherokee people were forced to march more than 1,200 miles through freezing temperatures with little food, little clothing, and no mercy. Children died in their mother's arms. Elders collapsed and were left behind. Entire families were buried in shallow graves along the side of the road. By the time it was over, more than 4,000 Cherokee people were dead. A quarter of their entire nation gone. But even on the reservations, the small, remote scraps of land the government assigned them, the destruction continued. The buffalo, the sacred animal of the Plains tribes, was systematically hunted to extinction. In 1800, over 60 million buffalo roamed North America. By 1890, fewer than 1,000 remained. This was not an accident. U.S. Army generals openly encouraged the slaughter because they knew without the buffalo, the people would starve. Without food, there could be no resistance. And then they came for the children. In 1879, a U.S. Army officer named Richard Henry Pratt opened the first Native American boarding school in Pennsylvania. His mission was summed up in a single phrase, a phrase that became government policy for decades. Kill the Indian, save the man. Native children, some as young as 4 years old, were taken from their families by force, put on trains, sent to schools hundreds of miles away. Their hair was cut, their language was forbidden. Their names were erased and replaced with English names. They were beaten, sometimes severely, for speaking their mother tongue, for singing their songs, for practicing their prayers. They were told their culture was shameful. Their ancestors were savages. Their traditions, worthless. Over 100,000 children passed through these schools. Many never came home, not because they chose to stay, but because they died there from disease, abuse, and heartbreak, and were buried in unmarked graves on school grounds. Graves that are still being discovered today. When the Native people resisted, and they did resist, the United States military responded with overwhelming force. There were hundreds of attacks on Native communities across the 1800s, raids on sleeping villages, ambushes at dawn, women and children shot without warning. But perhaps no single moment captures the horror of this era more clearly than what happened on the morning of December 29th, 1890, at a place called Wounded Knee Creek in South Dakota. A band of Lakota Sioux people, mostly women, children, and elderly men, had gathered in their camp. They were not armed for war. They were mourning. They had recently lost their great chief, Sitting Bull, who had been killed just weeks before. U.S. Army soldiers surrounded the camp. During an attempt to disarm the group, a shot was fired. Historians still debate by whom. What followed lasted less than an hour. When it was over, between 250 and 300 Lakota people were dead. Men, women, children, infants. Many were shot in the back while running away. Their bodies were left in the snow for 3 days. The soldiers who carried out the massacre were awarded the Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration in the United States. Those medals have never been taken back. Wounded Knee was not an isolated tragedy. It was the final chapter of a 400-year campaign of disease, forced removal, starvation, and slaughter against the first people of this land. History gave it a name. Scholars, activists, and survivors have called it what it was: genocide. Today, Approximately 3.7 million Native Americans live in the United States. 574 federally recognized tribes still exist. They survived. But the wounds of history do not simply heal with time. On reservations, where many Native Americans still live, poverty rates are 3 times the national average. Unemployment can reach 60, 70, even 80% in some communities. Access to clean water, adequate health care, proper schools, things most Americans take for granted, are still not guaranteed in many tribal areas. Life expectancy for Native Americans is 5 to 7 years shorter than the national average. Suicide rates among Native youth are the highest of any ethnic group in the United States. And there is a crisis that most of America has never heard of. Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, MMIW. Indigenous women in the United States are murdered at a rate more than 10 times the national average. Many cases go uninvestigated for months, some for years, some never. These women have names. They have families who are still waiting, still searching, still holding their photographs at marches where the rest of the world walks past without looking. But here is what the statistics do not tell you. These people are still here, and they are fighting. In 2016, thousands of Native Americans from across the country, joined by supporters from around the world, gathered at Standing Rock, North Dakota. They called themselves water protectors. They stood in the path of an oil pipeline that threatened their sacred land and water. They stood in freezing temperatures. They faced police with riot gear and water cannons. They were arrested, beaten, silenced. And they did not leave. Because protecting the land is not a political position for them. It is a spiritual responsibility. It is who they are. Languages that were nearly destroyed are being taught again. Children are learning words their grandparents were beaten for speaking. Tribal colleges are educating a new generation of Native doctors, lawyers, artists, and leaders. Native writers are telling their own stories, on their own terms, for the first time. Native activists are in courtrooms, in Congress, in classrooms. The culture that was supposed to be killed is alive. History books in America have called this continent discovered, as though 50 million people simply did not exist until a European ship arrived to notice them. They have called colonization progress. They have called the taking of this land manifest destiny, as though God himself had signed the paperwork. They have called the people who resisted savages, and the people who were killed obstacles. But they had names. Sitting Bull, the Hunkpapa Lakota leader who never surrendered his people's dignity. Crazy Horse, who said, "One does not sell the earth upon which the people walk." Geronimo, the Apache warrior who fought for 25 years to keep his people free. And millions more, whose names were never written down, whose stories were never told, whose graves have no markers. The United States has never formally apologized for the genocide of its indigenous peoples. In 2024, the U.S. government acknowledged for the first time that its boarding school policy constituted, in their own words, a cultural genocide, a first step, after 500 years. The question before us is not whether we can change the past. We cannot. The question is, what do we choose to remember? What do we teach our children? Whose story do we decide is worth telling? This land has a history older than any nation that claims to own it. And the people of that history are still here, still breathing, still singing, still holding on. Their story is not over.